Kimwana Donner, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I was saying just before we started rolling that it still is taking some getting used to this new normal we have.
I don't think I'm ever going to get used to this new normal.
Yeah.
I think the reason I'm not going to get used to it is because of the attitudes that are around it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
So the neglecting science or just saying that it doesn't exist or that it's completely wrong. So
Right.
I'm a bit of a germaphobe because I'm a singer, right? So before COVID, I was already in a mask.
Mm.
Um, I had a gig coming up, and anytime I have a gig, I go into a mask. So I was running around Costco with my mother wearing a mask, and I had her in a mask. Um, and if you know any opera singers, we run. If there's someone that sneezes, if an opera singer is around, they hear it. It could be 500 feet away. And it's like, so going on planes, I wear a mask. Um, just always, I'm a bit of a germaphobe. So when this came around, I was already there because I had gotten sick in January. And whenever I get sick, not always, but a lot of times it can go to your cords. And you can sing as long as it stays a head cold. But if it goes to your cords, you're done and you just have to wait it out. So that could be a week, that could be 2 weeks, that could be a month, you know. So I'm already a germaphobe, and then to have people um, ignore some of it is common sense, right? So even from the beginning, when they said, "Oh, the mask on one side it protects you, like it protects the going out, but it doesn't protect coming in." I'm like, this mask cost me $5 for about 10 of them. I don't think it's that scientific, you know. So we just all need to wear a mask. So that's my little vent. I'm done now.
Well, I'll tell you the thing is too. There's a lot of different information circulating, right?
Hmm.
And different sorts of people will sort of really follow the rules, and then others might not follow the rules as much, right?
Hmm.
One thing that is kind of funny is to see people with a mask on in their car driving. That's
Yeah,
always that's always one of the okay, you're following the rules. You're doing what you're supposed to do.
but there's only you, so you can
Right,
take it off.
right.
Right.
That's right. You can take it up. And going to the store, for instance, I've had to go to the grocery store several times, of course, and
Hmm.
more than I normally would have, because it was the summer, my son's out of school, and and he eats everything, and it's like constant eating, and he thinks it's funny. Like, you're eating it all gone. He thinks I'm joking. It's like,
How old is he?
this is getting. He's 7,
Okay.
and yeah, he's 7, but he eats. I don't know what, 2 times his body weight or something every day. I
Wow.
know. This is not actually true, but it seems like he's eating that much.
Hmm.
But so I'm at the grocery store and a lot more often than usual, and it's like people don't have a sense of personal space. Not at all.
No.
And I'm a I'm a I'm claustrophobic. I'm a bit claustrophobic, and so I like having space between me and the next person anyway.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's I don't know. It's made me notice some things that I didn't notice as much before. I think I just kind of just ignored that people just are in your space all the time. But now I notice that a lot more. So yeah.
And it's always annoyed me. I always said, can I have my 4 feet of personal space? It's always annoyed me,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah.
I guess
My
because I'm from Detroit. So I'm like, get away from me. You don't need to be that close.
my wife would just tell, she just tells them, she just tells people, excuse me, 6 feet.
I don't anymore. I think Vince was like, I've been like that my whole life. And I think I'm becoming gentler as I get older. But with COVID, I'm not. And I think I
Okay.
was embarrassing Vincent. So now I won't say anything. I will just
Mm.
walk away. But he's like, that's kind of just as bad. But I'm like, listen, this is life or death. And I think the thing that people don't understand is this is what has been on my mind.
Mm.
What is it about Americans? And I don't know, maybe this is happening in other parts of the world as well. Although I talk to some friends and not as much. But if it is 6 feet of personal space, so social distancing, which I would like even more than that, plus the mask. But people feel like if I have that a covering over my face, then I
Right
don't
then.
need the 6 feet.
Right.
I'm like, no, it's both. It's not and or. You need
Right.
both.
Right.
So this is it is making me realize many things. Um, and it's very scary, especially as a singer, because we are called super spreaders, which I understand. Um, but when do we get back to normal? And that even when we go back to normal, that's going to be really strange.
Yeah. It definitely will. One thing I was thinking about is, we're not going to know, we're not going to know how deadly this thing actually is until it's in the rear view mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can actually collect all the data. Either way, though, if it has caused people to be more conscious of things like washing their hands, sanitizer, just different things, and maybe creating some space, then maybe actually this will help to diminish unnecessary death associated with flus,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. So it's uh, it's a funky thing to happen, and this thing has been particularly devastating to musicians.
Yes.
It's really done a number on us, our
Mm-hmm.
industry. Obviously, if you if you can't have an audience, then you can't perform, right? And we're trying to do the virtual thing, and that's cool. That's cool for a few minutes, and then you want the audience again. I mean, that's just what this is all about. So I wanted to ask you about. So what is Wayne State doing about singing? Ohio State canceled all choral activities and everything,
Mm-hmm.
at least for this current semester. We'll find out what's going to happen for spring semester. As things develop. Uh, there's supposed to be a vaccine, maybe first week of November or something. They're
Mm-hmm.
saying so. We'll see what happens. And if that's going to have an impact and maybe change things for spring semester.
Mm-hmm.
But so what's going on? How are you all?
So I think that the choir, I'm not certain, so don't quote me, but I think that they're waiting till next semester to see if anything changes. Most of the classes are virtual.
Right.
Um,
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
Right.
I'm teaching virtually, so Zoom meetings, which is interesting, you know, but we have to be safe.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about the fact that Wayne State has not tried to push the boundaries and say, okay, we're just going to get back into it like nothing's happened. I think you have to consider science. I mean, you have to. You also have to just consider common sense, you know. I think maybe for some of the bands, I think there may be a band that will meet with social distancing. It's a smaller band, I think. Yeah. But most of it is online.
Now, at Ohio State, so I'm in Ohio, you know, Ohio State, you know.
Oh,
and
go blue. I should have worn a hat, t-shirt, or something.
So Ohio is an interesting place. It tends to be, you know, Ohio's like it's like a purple state, you know. Okay. And Michigan actually is, I guess, in recent history has been a little more purple, but is traditionally more of a blue state.
Blue. Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's blue.
And, yeah. Normally, right. So it's interesting how, you know, we're very close, and I think the way that this thing has affected Ohio and affected Michigan has been somewhat similar within a range. Both Midwest, but the gyms reopened in Ohio the day after Memorial Day, and have been
serious?
Yeah, and have been open the whole time. And I know that in Michigan, only recently, like within the last week or so.
Last week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have the gyms open. And my parents are up in Michigan, and actually both of my younger siblings are up in Michigan and their families. But my dad, he's an avid gym, you know. He goes to gym. You know, I'm a 5 days a week, you know. I'm you know, I live in the gym, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was telling I thought I was doing good, you know. I'm 5 days a week, you know, and I had this conversation with my dad, you know, I'm 5 days a week. He says, "Oh, that's good. I go 6 days." I was like, "Man, I still can't beat you. You still win. Why do I even try?" You know.
You might as well give up.
Yeah, I just gave it. I just give it up. He gets it all. But it's been particularly hard on him because, you know, a lot of folks are using, you know, going to the gym and things. It's like a mental health thing, you know.
It's a release.
Yeah, and the anxiety and everything else. Now, throw a bunch more anxiety on top of this, and also close all the gyms down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's been a very trying time. I will say, and I follow all the rules. I do everything I'm supposed to do, and my gym is a big enough gym to be able to do all the things that they were mandated to do to make it as safe as possible. But I was back in as soon as possible because I was
really?
Well, I was, and the 2 months that I was out, yeah, it's like a necessity. And I don't have the kind of equipment at the gym, at my house,
Hmm.
and I couldn't. And I did stuff like push-ups and stuff like that, and that's fine. But part of it is about the atmosphere.
Hmm.
It's about maybe certain people that you see. It has its own. It has its own. I can't think of something that is an adequate replacement for the gym. So I understand people's desire to want to go. I think people have to do it safely and follow whatever the rules are.
Hmm.
And I think if your gym is big enough, like a big chain gym, then
Hmm.
they will have the resources to be able to to clean the way that they're supposed to clean, and to sort of section off the gym in a way that will make it. It's not going to be 100% safe. No, nothing is,
Yeah.
but a lot better. So,
I think for me, so I have anxiety about getting sick. I've had it for a very long time, and the older I get, I think the worse it gets, right?
mhm.
So um, before COVID hit, I had gotten to the point, Starbucks used to be one of those places that I would go that I would kind of chill out, right? I could go, I could study some music, I could read a book. It's a place to go that's away from home, so you're not going to get caught up with anything around the house, but you're out. But again, if someone sneezed or I heard sniffles, I was out of there. So the beginning of the year, I remember sitting in the car going, should I go into the Starbucks or should I just go home and make a latte? Right? For 30 minutes. And I was talking to a friend, and a friend was like, girl, that's ridiculous. However, and here's the reason. I watch what people do when they're making my drink, right? And so sometimes when they put the top on, they'll touch the part that your mouth will
Yep.
go on, and then I'm irritated. So now I'm like, okay, can I have another top for that? Or you just reach over and get it, which is not really cool
Mhm.
because that's not really um, sanitary either. And that has started happening at the gym. So I lost my grandmother in November, which hit me harder than I ever could have imagined. And as a result, my gym time increased because that was the way that I could deal with it. I could get on a treadmill and I could run.
Yeah.
I started running faster and faster, longer and longer, because that was a release. I ended up injuring myself, but the issue was that I had to take down Lysol and wipes because their wipes were too dry. And then I was like, you know what, Kim? It's just too much. You're making yourself crazy. So I
Mhm.
get it. It's a release.
Mhm.
But for me, I know people are like, I got to go back to the gym. For me, I was like, you know what? I'll figure something else out because it's just, I drive myself crazy because I'm like, is she sick? Like, I'm always looking at people, is she sick? Did I hear her sniffle? She's making my drink. Her nose is over my drink. Or you go to a restaurant and you see somebody do something that's not particularly sanitary. Now the whole night I'm like, And so for the whole, basically we've been cooking every day. I've not been to Starbucks. I just spoke with a friend. He was like, yeah, I do my daily Starbucks. And I was like, yeah, no. Mm-mm.
You're probably saving money.
Exactly. And that was what, there are some good things that have come out of this, like, I can throw something together really quickly. It doesn't have to be a meal that takes an hour and a half. I think the
Mhm.
thing that hurts me the most about this is that I am a very warm person. You can't tell that by my germophobia. However, I haven't hugged my mom since March, the beginning of March, because I'm too afraid. Like, if I ever gave my mother something, it would break my heart, you know? And I also, as a singer, whether it's good, whether it's, easy for some people, or, you're on a respirator, it's an issue with your lungs. That's not a risk that I'm willing to take,
Yeah.
So, but mentally, I don't think, I think, I was talking to Vince about it, and I said, I don't think anybody is okay. I think we're all mentally having issues dealing with this. It comes out in different ways. I see things that I do, and then I go, there it is. I need to address that, But in the beginning, I was scared out of my mind because Detroit was hit so hard. And you see so many people in your community just dying. You talk to somebody and they go, such and such died, or this person died, or that person fell out in the pew, or this person, blah, blah, blah. So Vince and I, a couple of weeks ago, went running out at Belle Isle, and we were like, where are these pictures out here? Large posters, individual posters of different people with their names. We normally do 4 or 5 miles. For the whole time, on each side of the road, there were pictures. So as we're parking, we're like, what is this? This must be COVID. We look up a name, it's COVID. So this was like, well, maybe we should, not run here today. I was like, no, this is the point, right? So we start to do our little jog, we get around the corner, and Vincent says, that's my cousin, and that's my uncle. It's like you see all of these people, young, old, in Detroit, mostly Black. And then you realize, no, this is something that I really have to take seriously and be very, very smart about. So as much as I would love to go back to normal, I'm like, I really wish that there was a book written by someone who had made it through the 1918 pandemic. Like how was life after? Like when did they get back? When were they able to relax?
It's interesting that you bring that up because that 1918 pandemic, one thing that they learned was that staying inside was actually not a good thing.
Did they?
Yeah, being outside in open areas, especially if there's sun out, is one of the best things that you can do.
Because of the vitamin D, probably.
Yeah, and but mainly because if you're out in the open air, you can't. So like when you're inside, it's like an incubator, and
Right.
you're breathing in the same stuff over and over.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Whereas when you're outside, it's just going out into the atmosphere, so to speak, and it dissipates, so quickly that if you're outside, you could be around other people that actually are positive, and there's not much of a chance of you being infected because of the way that everything moves and the quality of the air outside. But
Wasn't it Kim Burns that did that? I watched it years ago. There was a special, a PBS special on the 1918 pandemic. Yeah, which is why I probably will never eat in a restaurant again. Ever. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
I think Vince is ready to get back, but never for me. I think, I shouldn't say never. Maybe in 10 years. But my food tastes just as a restaurant, so I'm good.
I understand, and you keep saying Vince. To the audience, of course, Vincent was episode 20. Vincent Chandler, Donner Chandler, so that's your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how long? Yeah. How long have you guys been together?
We have been together. Yeah, I don't want to give we've been together for, 29 years. But I met him when I was 7. So there you go.
Right. And so I saw, and this was, I don't know, maybe it was a year ago or something. You all did a program together?
We did. It was at the Charles H. Wright Museum. I think it was the Vincent Chandler Experience. And so um, I think he did mostly all original music that he had composed and arranged. And then he arranged Come Sunday for me. Little did I know how poignant that song would be. That was this year, actually, this February. And we did something last year too. But that was at the Charles H. Wright Museum. And last year we did some things, and I sang some of the So Many Stars songs, as well as he did an arrangement of My Man's Gone Now with me, which was fun. It was a lot of fun. Again, that one before, I sang through a sickness, which was, listen, praise the Lord, hallelujah, that I made it through. But I don't like having to do that, you know. But it's fun being on stage with him. We've done that a few times. I've had him play some classical things. You know, he's a great classical player, but he doesn't really play classically anymore. And you know, he's very shy, and I am too. But you know, on stage, when I'm singing a song, I take on the character of the song. So I remember we did this thing about Central Park, love in Central Park, and he was looking like, please stop, just stop. Because I was literally all over him. He was like, really? Our parents were in the audience. It is what it is.
Now you said that you're both shy, which is interesting. I'm very shy myself. I think I said before I'm an introvert, and now my wife is actually an extrovert though, and
Is she though? Is she? Because people think I'm extroverted, but I'm an introvert.
she's definitely an extrovert. So
Okay,
if you go ahead.
so I feel like this. For some women, where was she born?
Toledo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, depending upon where you are, where you grow up in this country, and depending upon, like, if you're Black, especially a Black woman, you can be shy if you want to, and the world will kick you around. And so I am shy, but I also can
Yeah.
stand up for myself. So Vincent always says I'm a fighter. I'm really not. But I think that's just something that you have to do when the time calls for it.
Yep.
Because other than that, I mean, you're in trouble. I bet your wife is really, really, really sweet, but she stands up
Oh,
for herself.
she's all kind of sweet, and she is warm, and she's all the things that I'm not. I'm pretty. I think it takes people a long time. So okay. So this is the measurement of extrovert versus introvert.
Okay.
Because people often assume that I'm an extrovert because I'm on the stage all the time,
Right.
and it looks like I'm totally comfortable, and and everything, and I am comfortable, but
Mm-hmm.
if I'm teaching, if I'm on the stage performing, I am not competing for anyone's attention. All right, so again, here's the measurement. So uh, you know if I don't have to compete for your attention,
Mm-hmm.
I can be as talkative and seemingly extroverted, and it's no big deal. If I had to go to like a mixer or something, where I don't know anybody
Mm-hmm.
and had to talk to people. First of all, I'm a terrible small talker. I have
Uh-huh.
no small talk chops. Zero. I mean,
Okay.
I can only you can only talk about the weather for very long before I want to actually get to something that's meaningful. And uh, and for me, I if I can't go deep quickly, it's like stifling. It's like I feel like
Okay.
I'm choking, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go to an event like that and I have to stay there for an hour, I need a full day of sleep.
Do you?
Yeah, it's really bad. It's very exhausting. Now, her on the other hand, my wife, she goes to an event where she doesn't know anybody, and it is rejuvenating. She's having all kinds of conversations. She has an unbelievable this unbelievable ability to. She's just so warm. Like she can talk with anybody about
Mm-hmm.
just total nonsense and do it
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. And it's like I can't do it. Matter of fact, it is like the greatest thing in the world when we have to go to these events where I don't know anybody, and she probably doesn't know that many people either,
Mm-hmm.
because she sets everything up. She does the work. She does the small talk. And she says, "Hey, why don't you go talk to this person? They like X, Y, and Z. I think you might want to talk to them." You know.
Oh,
Then I'm like,
wow.
"Yes, it's great."
Uh-huh. That's cool though. The yin and
Yeah,
the yang.
yeah, totally. It totally does work. But to the point earlier, I totally understand being shy, and that's just yeah, okay. So part of the shy thing and part of the introverted thing with this, with the quarantine,
Mm-hmm.
part of it actually facilitated this interview series, for instance, right?
Okay. Right.
So first of all, folks are available to talk because all the gigs are canceled. But secondly, for me, it doesn't bother me to spend a lot of time by myself.
Me either. I'm
You
an
know,
only
so
child, so it's easy. Yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, it's interesting how that whole thing how that whole thing works. So you said you're an only child.
Mhm.
Why don't you talk to us about how you grew up and when, like the kind of music that was happening around the house, and when and how did singing become such a central part of your life?
Um, so I grew up in Detroit, which,
Mm,
there's music everywhere. There's always
right.
music. There's
Yeah.
music when you go outside, there's music inside, there's always music. My mother listened to um, a lot of different, well, not a lot. She listened to R&B and she listened to smooth jazz, and then she loved Nancy Wilson, um, and she loved the Jazz Crusaders. So there was that. Um, my mother did not like opera. However, um, let me start from the beginning though. So I always sang. I don't remember not singing. So even as a child, I sang to the point that, those old stereos that you could plug in the little microphone to.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I remember my father got me a Mickey and Friends album,
Mm.
and I would sing that. And then I loved Natalie Cole, so I would do little performances, and they would oblige me. They would listen. Um, and it was just a known thing around my family that I sang everything. I sang in the church choir. I just sang all the time. And I remember when it started to be an issue. So I remember a summer being at my grandmother's house. She was sitting on the porch with a friend, and I was like playing jacks or something, but there was music playing and I was singing. And I remember to this day, it was Tina Marie and Rick James.
All right.
And I was just a wailing. And the dude was like, does she ever stop singing? And my grandmother goes, no, go ahead and sing, baby. And I was like, oh, okay. Then my aunt had her fiance. We were in the car, and he's like, she sings everything. She sings the commercials too. Like, yeah, okay. And when I got into choir, people would go, why she sing so loud? It was just one of those things. But then the United Negro College Fund, I remember seeing Lansing Price, and I lost my mind. It's like immediately seeing her, like everything came together, and it stayed with me. So great performances on PBS. The next thing I think I saw was Pavarotti and Morella Frani singing Bohème, and I was mesmerized. And so by the time I got to high school, I went to Castech. I had to shout that out. But anyway, my mother said, what are you going to major in? And I said, music. And she was like, no, 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 no. Pre-law, pre-med. I was like, no. She was like, business. No, music. So then my mom says, well, if you want to do music, then I'm going to help you. So I started taking lessons. But I think my mother thought I was going to grow out of it. She wanted me to grow out of it. We had many talks about, listen, the life of an artist is not something that you really want to do. You like nice things. So maybe you should go in another direction. But when it bites you and it's something that you love, what can you do, you know?
Yep.
And when you're young and naive, you think that as long as I have the talent and I do what I'm supposed to do and I work really hard, then everything will turn out the way that it's supposed to. Until you realize that that's a yes and a no, you know? And so I started singing in high school. Well, I had already been singing, but classically I started singing in high school. And I wanted to do it in middle school because I had a teacher who sang classically around in the class. She was my music teacher. And I wanted lessons in the 6th grade. And she said, no, I'll give you piano lessons. So she would come to my house once a week after class and I would have piano lessons. But again, this whole time my mom's like, she's gonna grow out of it. And I never did. And I love it. Like, you know, so when I talk to kids and they go, well, I might want to do this, I kind of go, well, you probably should do that. If you can think of anything else that you want, that you may want to do, then that's the direction
then
that you
do
should
that.
go.
That's right.
Yeah. It's too hard a life.
That's
for
right.
most of
That's
us
right. That's right.
If you don't love it.
That's right.
You know? So I ended up at University of Michigan, and I had a teacher who was great. It just didn't work for me. And by then, you know, that shyness I talked about, I had gone through some things. So I was not, I spoke my mind. I was thinking about that India Arie song, Back to the Middle, like you go way to one side and way to the other side. So I went from never really speaking, like being very, very, very quiet, to a joke years ago, before I went to University of Michigan. I keep saying Vince because we've been together so long, everything ties together. But we were at McDonald's and the girl couldn't understand me. And he was like, the menu has been the same for 50 years. If she can't understand you, you're not speaking loud enough. But by the time I got to Michigan, all of that had changed. So I had a teacher, and it just wasn't working. We had been together for a year and a half. And before I went to Michigan, I had a couple years that I kind of floundered, and it wasn't, it was rough, right? And so every day I would go to the Detroit Institute of Arts, and I would go over to the Detroit Library, and they have the Azalea Hackley collection. And I would just read up and listen to all these amazing opera singers, and especially Black opera singers, because I was looking for somebody that I could see myself in. Of course, I loved Jesse Norman, and I loved Kathleen Battle, and I loved Fleetwood Price. But then I'm realizing, I read a book, And So I Sing, in high school, and realized that there were so many of these women that I didn't know about or hadn't heard. And so again, Vincent, we're looking in the back then, the VHS, and he picks up this thing that says The Black Diva. It's the Shirley Barrett documentary. So I watched that documentary. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Just, I can't even believe that she can do some of these things. And this is while I'm not in school. And I cry at the end. And he's like, why are you crying? I was like, because she's so beautiful. And she can do all these things with her voice, and I can't do that. So I get to Michigan. I'm studying with this man who was a great man. It's just, I think, teachers and students, it's a very special bond, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, And a year and a half in, I couldn't do some things that I wanted to do. And so I said, why can't I do these things? And he said, well, it takes longer than 6 to 8 weeks to learn how to sing. I was like, yes, but I've been with you for a year and a half. I've done everything you've asked me to do. I had books, notebooks of my lessons written out with my practice journal in it, like over that whole year and a half. And I left because I didn't want to be disrespectful. So I left, and my accompanist was like, how are you? Okay, It's like, I'm fine. I went back in the next week, and he said, Shirley Barrett is coming here to teach. And I thought, of course, she's going to come here like 4 or 5 years when I've graduated. And he says, no, she's coming next semester. So that same accompanist, when we walked out, who's a great repetiteur at the Met now, Howard Watkins, he was like, listen, she's really good friends with George Shirley. So here's his number. He's at Aspen right now. Why don't you call him? I called him, and he immediately gave me her number, and then I auditioned for her. And that's how I started studying with her. And it really changed my life, to be able to study with someone who knew what my struggle was, And when I say knew what my struggle was, or knew what it would be, like, I think people expect a certain sound when they see someone who looks like me, and we're not monolithic, so we all sound different. Or the thing that I got when I started to sing, I would get roles, and I would go do a role, and sometimes I get a standing ovation, and then afterwards people would go, wouldn't she make a great Bess? And I was like, hey, that's the only thing they can really think is Porgy and Bess. Like, she can make a great Bess. And so that was my struggle for a long time, And I have no problems with Porgy and Bess. I know I've said things in the past. I'm older now. I have no problems with Porgy and Bess. It's just that was the only piece that was in the canon that was really about Black life, right? But it was not from our perspective. And so I used to joke and say, well, if I'm going to play Bess, then I could have tried to audition for Diddy. Like, if I just wanted to just shake it on stage, or, you know, act as if I'm hooked on drugs. And when I say that, here's the thing. If you can play a Bess, but you can also play a Contessa, and you can be, you know, I don't know, for some people, a Sophie or a Despina, or, you know, Elvira or an Anna. If you can do those things and do all of it, then that's one thing. The issue that I had was that at that time, it was like, oh, she's a Bess. Wouldn't she be a great Bess? She should do Bess. He would be a great Bess. It's like, I didn't do all this studying all this time to only play that role. I want to play all the roles. I want to be the Contessa. I want to be, you know, Salome. But that was something that I would hear constantly. And so when my voice started changing, I was like, oh, maybe I need to go in that direction. But I went on a tour where I played Strawberry Woman in Porgy and Bess, in Russia, in Poland. And it literally was, I don't want to say it's the worst experience of my life, because it wasn't. I was there with some friends. I have great memories. But the way that we were treated was, I'll just give you an example. So we were flown into Belarus, which was, I think, 3 hours from where we were going in St. Petersburg. We get to the hotel, and the bus driver kicks us off the bus. It's raining and it's cold. We're all singers. All of the tech people are not African American, and they all go in. And they say, wait out here. No, I'm not waiting out here. That's what the lobby is for. So I say, I'm going in. My friend goes in with me, and we sit down and we wait. But some people stayed outside. And, well, a lot of people stayed outside. And it really hurt my heart, because if we don't sing, you don't have a show. So there were so many things that happened. People getting called, you know, the N-word. One woman was slapped out in the streets. It was rough. And then they put us on a train instead of flying us to Poland. They put us on a train for 17 hours. In the middle of that, we were awakened with knocks, with what looked like soldiers with dogs, telling us, asking for our passports. And everybody's like, are they gonna take us out in the middle of nowhere and shoot us and kill us? We don't know what's happening. It was just, and the dichotomy of that with when we sang in Moscow and in St. Petersburg, it was standing ovations, the rhythmic clap. I was like, wow, it really messed with my head, you know? So I was supposed to go back and sing Bess in Greece. And I said, no, I will not. Not to be treated like that and have to fight and have to talk to you about the way that you talk to me, you know? Like, no, that's unacceptable. The way that you're screaming right now is unacceptable. Like, I don't know why I have to tell you that. And no, I'm not gonna wait in the rain, in the cold, when there's a lobby. That makes no sense. And for some people, that probably doesn't seem like a lot, But for me, I'd never been treated that way before. So now I'm in the part of my life where my voice has matured. And now, here's the other thing. A lot of people want us to sound like Leontine Price. I don't sound like Leontine Price. I don't. And even the people that want to sound like Leontine Price, they don't sound like her either. There's only one. So, but it's, you want to sing that rep because it's amazing. You want to sing the Verity that she sang. It's like, yeah, that music is incredible. And so in my head, I wanted to sing that. And a friend of mine was like, you need to sing German rap. And I was like, German. Lo and behold, that's what I'm embarking on now. And now I love it, but that was part of my stubbornness for a good 10 years. Like, no, I'm gonna wait. But, you have to do what your voice says.
Now, what sorts of things do you practice? So, I took some voice lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I recently finished my doctorate, and
Mm-hmm.
part of that, my doctoral
Congratulations.
study. Thank you. And part of my doctoral studies, I studied. Uh, I studied with one of the voice professors at the school,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a good experience and everything. There wasn't an expectation for me to, we understood what it was. I'm not really a singer. I wanted to understand more about the voice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a minister of music at church, and I work with singers all the time. I think understanding more about the voice makes me a better writer for voice. It also makes me a better director of voices.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also things like in the organization of rehearsals, having time for warming up and what should a warm up be and all of that kind of stuff. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be more knowledgeable about that stuff. So what kind of things do you practice?
So the vocalies that you practice most of the time is some of everything. So for instance, you have a vocalese that's just an easy 5-note scale just to get the voice kind of coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may do that going down to the bottom of the range and then going up to the top of the range. Well, not exactly the top, but getting up there. Then you have vocalises that you do to stretch your voice. You have coloratura to get the voice moving. There are books. Sometimes you do books. Sometimes I do things that I got from my teacher before. Sometimes I make things up. And a lot of times it comes from the music that I'm learning. So, for instance, right now I'm doing the Zalimi. And to work some of that stuff into your ear, you have to come up with a little vocalese, right? Because it's kind of all over the place. I would say that some of the vocalizing can be like a horn player. Like, I know I annoy him, but I don't do it as much as I used to. But when Vince would practice, I would sing, and he was trying to go through all 12 keys. And then he'd go, and then I'm doing this. And I was like, keep on, let's go, But we have some things that lap over. And of course, you do it in major, you do it in minor, you do all kinds of things. It just depends. Like right now, I'm working with Russell Thomas. What we're working on more than anything right now, for me at this stage, is chiaroscuro. So sometimes the squillo in my voice, the front part, it can be a lot, right? it can kind of be piercing. And I do have color to my voice. And so trying to make sure that you have both and that I don't just go into the front, because I used to sing with a perch. So when you study, did you ever do a perch, like when you set up and then you go, right?
Yes.
It's kind of embouchure.
Mm,
No, did you or no?
no.
Okay. It's kind of like you perch. Um, and so I've gotten out of that, and
Hmm.
it's now just trying to keep everything linear, um, and not getting too thick. So, and when I say not getting too thick, um, you know the stereotypical sound of an opera singer, oh, that everybody hates. That's
Mm,
the sound that you don't want, right? So everything that I'm doing now is to make sure that it's my sound, completely my core, with all of the, I'm trying not to think of backspace, but you do think of backspace a little bit, but making sure that it is still in the mask.
mm,
Um, and making sure that I support, because as you get older, your voice changes, and what you were doing before doesn't always work. Um, as you gain weight, you lose weight, things change. So I'm you just play whatever you need that day. So like when you were taking lessons, I'm sure I don't know. I shouldn't say I'm sure. Normally with the teacher, um, they say, okay, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, right? And
mhm.
then if they're not getting what they want, you go in another direction to hit it so that you understand it and then come back. Well, I have to do that with myself all the time. It's
Right.
like playing an inspector. Like, okay, this is working on this file, but it's not working on that file. Or this is working on this F sharp, but then when I go to the G or the A flat, all of a sudden it's not the same. Or if I approach this B flat from a leap,
Mhm.
I'm cool. But if I have to, you know, go from the A flat to the B flat, all of a sudden I'm feeling weird. Why? It literally is always being a detective, which is going back. That's the one thing I learned from that particular teacher, that we didn't mesh. He always had me with a Grey's Anatomy book, and he would, this is what's happening, and I would write it in, and I studied it like I was in med school. But then I was like, those are involuntary muscles. So how do I get that to work? And I think that's the thing that I'm doing with myself all the time now. Like getting my voice to do what I want it to do all the time. Um, Go ahead.
You
I'm
know
sorry.
something? No, no. This, I mean, this is all great. So, something with my. So what happens to me is, especially if I'm not supporting
Mm-hmm.
my voice, I don't have very much endurance.
Yeah.
You know, it just, I mean, it peters out. I mean, I can hear and I can sing what it is that I'm hearing. I'm a baritone,
Okay.
uh, but I can't do it for very long. You know, so uh, at church, you know, praise and worship, whatever, I'll lead a song or something, and that's about what I have, is to lead one song.
Really?
And and then, I mean, I could continue to sing, but if I kept doing it, I would start to get to a place where, my range is significantly being,
Lower.
yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
lower. And part of it, I know I need to go back and look at my notes. I record everything, so I have audio recordings of all the lessons just to remember certain things. But most of it is that my tendency is not to support as much as I need to, not to use as much air as I need to. When I use more air, I can sing for longer. But then the other thing is that I don't sing all the time. So even if I did support a lot, I wouldn't have a lot of endurance anyway, because it's not a muscle that I on the, you can't expect something out of something that you don't use,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was going to ask you, how do you know that you're getting tired? How long can you sing without? How long can you sing, and then and how long do you need to recover?
So if I sing correctly, I can sing for long periods of time and I don't need a recovery. It also
Mm.
depends on what I sing though. That's one of the things. So for instance, if you sing an opera, the opera may be 2.5, 3.5 hours, right? Depending upon which role you're singing, you could be singing for an hour and a half, 2. Um, so it depends on if I'm supporting, it depends on um, if I'm practicing. So for instance, 2 weeks ago, I was working on this one, it was literally one page of music, probably like 12 bars, but I kept doing it. And it sat right in my passaggio. And I kept beating and beating it because I would do it and go, no, that's not it. And then say, okay, I need to try it like this. And every time I was like, just move on. Nope, I think this will make it work. Think of something else. I think this will make it work. After that time, I actually, when I left, my voice was really high. My voice was sitting really high. And I came home and I made some ginger tea. And I was like, yeah, I can't beat my voice up like that. And that was partly because in some instances I wasn't supporting. I was trying to create a sound that I heard in my head that I wanted to do. And I kept trying to play with all these things. But the truth of the matter is if you sing correctly, you shouldn't be tired. However, with that being said, I've sung Donna Elvira, and that's a role that I used to be able to sing. I could sing night after night if I needed to, right? There are certain roles that you can do that with. I sang Leonora from Il Trovatore, and that one I needed a day. Like I just needed a day to chill out. My voice felt fine, and I felt as if I could sing it again, but physically I was tired. I was drained, physically, emotionally. Vocally, it was fine when we had rehearsals back to back. But I remember we had I think a piano dress and an orchestra dress, like back to back. And for some reason, I sang them both instead of marking. After that orchestra dress, I was like, yeah, I can feel that. And then you go back to why singers are supposed to sing a certain way,
So now, how about diet? Because I've had some singers on. I know a lot of. I've been fortunate to perform with a lot of great singers, and I like to ask questions about things because, first of all, if I ask an artist about their art, it's a good way to get them to open up and start talking. But I'm actually also interested in what it is that I'm asking them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions that I've asked some singers that I've had on this program is about diet. What kind of impact does diet have on your voice?
So when I was younger, I could eat anything and sing. I remember singing a flora in Traviata, and I had a double cheeseburger from Wendy's with fries and a frosty. And I was like, people are like, you're eating that before you sing? I was like, yes, it's fine. And then 2 years later, I tried it singing Bohème. And I was like, oh, okay, things have changed. Have changed. Now for me, I don't really suffer that much with acid reflux except when I'm stressed. So if I'm not stressed, I can kind of eat normally and sing. But the funny thing is that when I have a job, I eat clean. I don't have a problem eating clean when I have a job. I don't have a problem working out when I have a job. I'm very regimented.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm home, it's over. Like, I love sweets, which I shouldn't have.
Cold and sweet is my thing. And
Yeah.
especially the later I eat it in the day, the more I like it. So if it could be like 1 a.m. right before I turn over to go to sleep, that's when I like it.
I
I'm just being honest. I'm just being
Yeah.
honest. That's my thing.
No, now I realize that. So I'm now doing this intermittent fasting where I'm trying to stop eating at 8. And it does feel better. It doesn't quite take me as long to warm up in the next day because I'm not digesting things as I sleep for the most part. It's kind of done already. I think I want to keep that, but will I ever let go of my hamburgers? No.
Good
Especially
for you.
now COVID. Life's like, look, you have to enjoy the things you enjoy.
I love hamburgers. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could give that. I could give it up for like, maybe a week at a time, a couple weeks at a time, but not much further than that. Okay, so there is a certain stereotype about opera singers.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it?
Brunhilde or the fat woman.
Yeah, it ain't over until the fat lady sings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that maybe people have. I, there's a lot of people that I know, and there's a lot of great singers that I know
Mm-hmm.
that I think believe that if they lost weight, that they wouldn't be able to sing the way that they can. Do you have any thoughts about? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I do. So, my weight has been an issue for a long time. I think I've been dieting since I was probably like 8. And not that I needed to. When I look back now, it's just something that I did. And so when I was working in San Francisco, I decided that I wanted to lose weight. Looking back now, I was not that big. I don't think I would have been considered big by anyone, right? However, the general director at the time gave us all, it was like a class. And she was like, so look to the left of you and look to the right. 3/4 of you will not be here. And that is because of what you do. Not necessarily how you sing. But last year, I gave everyone gym memberships. They said that I shouldn't do that, so I'm not going to do that this year. But people don't want to see fat opera singers, right? So in my head, I was like, okay, what do I need to do? So I immediately got a gym membership, which I've been going to the gym with my mom since I was about the same age. They used to let me go. And I was literally running around the opera house in the morning. And then I'd run to the gym and I'd work out and I'd run back home, I change clothes, and then I would go to work. Um, I got down to like 145 pounds, and that same general director said, "Stop losing weight because if you get smaller, the stage will eat you up." I have to say that I took the weight. I think this is the issue. I took the weight off too fast. So I couldn't adjust my breathing because it came too fast. I think that's the only thing that you have to work on when you're, I know for sure that size of voice, quality of voice doesn't change based on how big or small you are. Because there are some really tiny people who have huge voices, you know what I mean?
Right.
But your breath, having something to push against when you're bigger, I was used to that. And so when I got smaller, I was like, okay, what do I do? I'm trying to lose weight now, but I'm not trying to take off as much, number one. And then number two, it's something that I'm working on and cognizant of all the time, that I must continue to work on my breath. Because other than that, that can cause issues.
This is interesting because I think there's some interesting parallels between that and okay, so I use a lot of weightlifting analogies in my teaching because it's very physical and it makes things that are somewhat abstract seem more concrete. But often what happens is you'll see, so say for instance like bodybuilders, one strategy for a bodybuilder, which is very common, is to go through what's called a bulking phase. So you go through this bulking phase and you get as strong, as big as you can get, and then you have to go through a cutting phase. Now, when you're cutting, if you cut the wrong way, you'll lose too high of a percentage of muscle. Because when you lose weight, you're not just losing fat, you're losing muscle too. You can't, that's just how it works. And and when you this thing you said about losing weight too fast, it makes me wonder if some sort of weight training, honestly, to try to retain some of the muscle that you have. So when you lose weight, you're not also losing muscle that you need to, as you said, push off of. You know, it's interesting. You know, and with the bodybuilding thing, you know, there's maybe certain kinds of foods or whatever that you can stay away from, or that you can eat more of, or whatever. You know, my issue was when I started cutting, I would get injured. And I would get injured because as I get down to close to my target weight, the water, I was becoming dehydrated, and so the water would also my tendons and ligaments and stuff would also get dehydrated, and then I end up with a tear. And so somebody told me, well, when you're doing that, one strategy is to, you know, put some in your drinking water, to put some sea salt, because that'll force your body to still retain water, and then when you get to the very end, then you can take that out. But I just wonder, I just wonder if there's something to that. Also, you know, there's the term musician's physique. That's not, you know, it doesn't conjure up images of you know, 5% body fat you know, people, right? So it's you know, you see the organist, he's as big as the organ. And there's some saxophone players in particular, Cannonball Adderley and Charlie Parker. These are really, really big guys. And I think that there's this thought that their size had something to do with their sound. And I think it's true that their size did have something to do with their sound. But it wasn't because of the amount of space that they took up. It was because of the amount of physical strength that they had.
And for singers, I think sometimes it is, for instance, you see some Wagnerian singers and their torsos are like this big, man or woman, right? That's going to do something. Or if your neck literally sits on, there's like it doesn't come in, that's going to do something. Most of us have big heads. Those are the things that make it what it is. And the truth of the matter is that the size of your voice is the size of your voice, right? If you sing correctly. You can get yourself in trouble though. Like if you get too big, that also can negatively affect your sound. Like there are times that you go, I can hear, but you can hear what the person looks like, right? Does that make sense? There's a new show that's coming out.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's a new show that's coming out that they're gonna try to see if they can guess who the real singers are, right? It's not The Voice, it's another one. But I have literally in my life walked up to someone and said, "You're a singer, right?" And they were, because they look like a singer. There's just something that you go, thin, big, it doesn't matter. For me personally, I like pretty dresses. And, I feel like for opera singers, we have a dying audience. So we need to do something to bring in audiences. And I have been a critic at times about this, because there was a point, I did a show in Boston and we were on the radio and the person made a statement about the cast was good looking and thin. And I was like, but then are you talking about our singing? Like, because we're not modeling. So you have to hit both sides. It has to be that it's appeasing to the eye, but it also needs to be appeasing to the ear. And sometimes now you sometimes see people and they look fantastic, but then when they sing, you're like,
yeah.
And when we already have a dying audience, we really need both. So if it came down to whether I wanted to see someone who was really attractive in a beautiful gown or suit and whose voice was and somebody who was big but could sing and touch your heart and make you cry, then I would rather hear that.
Of course. Of course.
But that's not right now. We're trying to compete with Hollywood. We'll never win that fight. We will never win that fight. And, I did a show once and everybody was eating salads, chicken salads. And it's like, what a boring life. That's all we're eating, chicken salads. Everybody's trying to make sure they stay thin, So it's trying to find the balance. I guess that goes back to this COVID thing, right? We're all trying to figure out the important things in life and find the balance of how much do you enjoy, and then, I guess at the end of the day, it's moderation. But there are some people, and I was one of them. I was working out with weights all the time, but then that also caused problems vocally for me.
Oh, interesting. You start
to strain a little bit, because if you are goal oriented, it's like, okay, well, I was lifting this poundage 2 weeks ago. I should be up to this you know, and now you're really happy because you can do these supersets. Um, again, being in the gym while I was on a gig once, and it was almost like I knew it was going to happen. I was on some other thing. I don't know if I was with free weights or what, but there was a dude doing the most, absolute most. And it's almost like everybody in the gym knew something's going down. And he literally dropped, because he was like, oh, he dropped the weight on his foot. But it was so heavy that the EMTs had to come in and wheel him out. And I was like, wow, you're doing too much. Just doing too much. But I get it, you know? That's how I injured myself. Because I was running, I was like, I can do faster. I can go longer. I can da. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have a joke about, what causes most of the injuries to men in the gym. It's testosterone.
Yes.
That's the main that's the main cause.
It is.
Yep. Well, I mean, we could keep talking. I feel like there's so many other things that we could talk. Matter of fact, we're going to have you back. We're going to have you back. I've got 1,000 more topics, questions. I do want to give you a chance if there's something that you want to plug or something that you want to say, or if you have a final word.
I'm not plugging anything right now because I am literally, I'm very happy to have made it to, what are we, September 14th, 2020.
Oh my goodness.
Right now I'm in preparation mode. And hopefully, I was about to do a Terrence Blanchard opera, which for me was a dream come true because, my prom night, I went to a Spike Lee movie. Like, I love Spike Lee and
Oh
love.
yeah, that's my man. What
So
movie? What movie was it?
It was Do the Right Thing. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Of course you asked me that question. So then people can go, oh, she's, Anyway.
I was not trying to I promise. I just love Spike, and I wanted to know.
Yeah. And so I was really excited to do, especially here in Detroit, to do an opera that was about boxing in the city of Detroit. It was, yeah, I was really excited about that. So hopefully that can come back. I'm studying my Wagner and my Strauss right now, and it seems to be going really well. I feel like I'm probably in the best space that my voice has ever been in. And it's very interesting to kind of, although I logged a lot of years in opera, to kind of be starting over because it's in a whole new world for me. And to see what the world will look like for us to do this with music. I'm hoping that all of our venues, our opera houses, our jazz clubs can hold on through this. I'm hoping that people vote so that we can come back outside and, hug each other and have conversations. I think those types of things have been on my mind a lot, but luckily for me, being an artist, I think it's easier going through COVID being an artist because you can go and practice. You can go into your place, your little, section of earth and do that. Whereas a lot of people, feel like, I'm so bored. I can never be bored. I can never work out all the things that need to be worked out. So I'm constantly trying to figure it out. So that's it. I wish everybody health. That's what I wish.
Yeah. Well, God bless you, and
God bless you too.
Yeah, and your family. Thank you. And pray for safety, and I can't wait to hear this new material you're working on.
Thank you.
So that's something for me to look forward to.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I really
All
appreciate
right.
it.
All right. Well, God bless you, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
All right now.